You know, in our village, everyone knew Mary. She was the kind of person who could make you feel welcome with just a smile. Her bakery stood at the corner of the main road, a small, colorful building adorned with bright flowers that danced in the breeze. Every morning, the aroma of freshly baked bread and sweet pastries wafted through the air, drawing in people from all around. The village was a charming place, with small, colorful cottages lining the narrow cobblestone streets. Bright flower boxes filled with blooms hung from the windows, adding splashes of color everywhere you looked. A clear stream ran through the center, its gentle flow creating a peaceful sound that filled the air. In the marketplace, friendly vendors sold fresh fruits and homemade goods, while laughter from children playing nearby brought a sense of joy. Each morning, the warm sunlight lit up the village, making it feel like a cozy, welcoming home for everyone who lived there. I was one of those drawn in, often stopping by to grab a treat after school, lured by the tantalizing scents. One particularly hot afternoon, I decided to treat myself to one of our famous meat pies. I could already imagine the flaky crust and the savory filling, a perfect comfort food on a hot day. Among the customers were young, smart, and handsome secondary school students with neatly combed hair, confident smiles, and loud childish banters that caught the attention of everyone around them. As I bit into the pie, the warmth filled my mouth, but then I felt something odd. My heart sank as I pulled out a thick strand of hair, dark and tangled. I couldn't believe it. I looked around the shop. Everyone else, including the student, was happily munching away, completely oblivious. I wanted to scream, but instead, I dropped the pie and dashed out of the bakery, my stomach churning and my heart racing. Outside, the sun was shining, but it felt like a storm was brewing inside me. The whispers I had heard about Mary echoed in my mind. Some folks said she was strange, that her food had a secret ingredient. I had always brushed off those rumors as mere gossip, but now doubt crept in. For a few days, I stayed away from her shop, battling the urge to return and seek answers. Curiosity gnawed at me relentlessly. I wanted to believe I had just imagined things. So, I decided to go back, hoping to find nothing amiss. As I walked in, Mary greeted me with her usual bright smile, as if nothing had happened. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the display of pies. "Mary," I finally said, trying to keep my voice steady. "About the hair in the pie." She laughed, her eyes sparkling with mischief.
"Oh, that's just a little extra flavor."
A chill ran down my spine. It felt like she was playing a game, and I was the only one who didn't know the rules. I left without buying anything, but my friends didn't believe me when I shared what had happened. They just laughed, saying I was overreacting. "Mary wouldn't do that," they insisted. "You're imagining things." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. Weeks passed, and I tried to forget about it. But every time I saw someone enjoying her treats, a knot formed in my stomach. I wanted to warn my friends, but they were all still raving about how delicious her pastries were. Their laughter seemed to echo mockingly in my mind. Then one night, I had a nightmare. I saw Mary in her kitchen, mixing dough, her hair cascading into the bowl as she sang softly. The image was so vivid it jolted me awake, sweat dripping down my face. I couldn't shake that eerie feeling, the impression that I had stumbled upon something far more sinister. Weeks later, I stumbled upon the local barber while running errands. An idea sparked in my mind, and I decided to ask him about Mary. I approached him hesitantly. "Do you remember Mary from the bakery?" I asked. His brow furrowed and he nodded.
"Yes, she used to come in often for a trim."
I took a breath, feeling the urgency build inside me. Did she ever ask for anything unusual? The barber's eyes narrowed.
"Now that you mention it, she did have a peculiar request once. She wanted the hair I cut to be saved in a jar."
My heart raced. What did she do with it? He shrugged.
She said it was for special prayers. I thought it was odd, but you know how it is. People have their quirks.
I felt the ground shift beneath me. The pieces fell into place. The hair I found in the pie, the whispers, the unease. It all made sense now. Mary had been using hair from the barber in her baking. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. I rushed back to gather my friends. Mary wasn't just strange. She was using hair in her food, I explained, recounting what the barber had told me. Ibina's eyes widened.
So all those rumors were true?
One evening, I ran into an old acquaintance, Kwame, who had been a frequent visitor to Mary's bakery.
You've got to come with me.
He urged, excitement dancing in his eyes.
I saw something strange the other day when I went in.
What do you mean? I asked, feeling a rush of adrenaline. He leaned in closer, lowering his voice.
I was just grabbing a loaf of bread when I noticed Mary in the back. She was mixing something in a large bowl, and it looked different. It wasn't just flour and water. It was dark and thick, almost like mud. I couldn't quite see what she was adding, but it felt off.
My heart raced at his words. Did you see what she was using?
No,
He replied, shaking his head.
I didn't want to make it obvious I was watching. But she was humming this weird tune, and the whole thing just felt wrong.
Why didn't you tell anyone? I asked, frustration bubbling up inside me.
I thought it was just me being paranoid. But now,
He hesitated, glancing around as if Mary might appear at any moment.
I think we need to investigate.
That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of Mary mixing something strange kept me awake, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the brink of discovering something sinister. The next day, I gathered my courage and decided to confront Mary again, but this time I would have Kwame with me. When we arrived at the bakery, we noticed the door slightly ajar. We exchanged glances, our hearts racing. "Let's go in," I whispered, pushing the door open slowly. The shop was empty, save for the sound of Mary's voice coming from the kitchen in the back. As we crept closer, we could see her through the doorway. She was hunched over a large mixing bowl, her back to us. The mixture inside was indeed dark and viscous, swirling as she stirred it with an old wooden...
Look,
Kwame whispered, pointing to a shelf lined with jars filled with various ingredients. Some were familiar: sugar, flour, spices, but others were unrecognizable. A few jars even had labels that read "Hair of the Night" and "Whispers of the Wind." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What is she doing?" I breathed, my voice barely a whisper. Just then, Mary turned slightly, and we quickly ducked behind a counter, our hearts pounding in our chests. I could see her clearly now as she sprinkled something from a small pouch into the bowl. It glimmered in the light, a strange, almost ethereal substance that seemed to dance as it fell.
yeah, she's definitely up to something.
Kwame murmured.
We need to get out of here.
Before we could make our move, Mary began to hum again, her voice low and melodic. The sound was oddly soothing, but there was an edge to it, something that made my skin crawl.
Just a little more.
She said to herself, stirring the mixture with a fervor that felt almost frenzied. With a shared glance of resolve, we crept back toward the entrance. But just as we reached the door, it swung open, and Mary stood there, her smile disarming. "What a surprise!" she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling.
Didn't expect to see you two today.
Kwame and I froze, caught in the act. We just wanted to see how things were going, I stammered, trying to muster a casual tone. Mary's gaze sharpened, and I could see a flicker of suspicion.
Oh, everything is just lovely. I'm trying out some new recipes.
She stepped aside, motioning us in.
Why don't you come and have a taste?
No, thank you.
Kwame blurted, almost too quickly.
We actually have plans, right? Plans?
Plans, I echoed, desperate to back him up. Yes, plans. Mary's smile faded slightly, replaced by something cold.
Well, you're welcome to come back anytime.
She said, her voice a bit too sweet.
I have plenty of pies ready for you.
As we stumbled out, I couldn't shake the feeling that she knew we were onto her. Once outside, we took a moment to collect ourselves, the weight of what we had witnessed hanging heavy in the air. That was too close, I said, my voice shaking. We need to tell everyone what we saw. In the days that followed, I felt the unease in the village grow. People began to murmur about Mary, and I could see their faces turning pale whenever her name was mentioned. Some of my friends had started to experience strange dreams, shadows creeping into their thoughts, leaving them restless. The next week, I decided to revisit the barber. I needed to find out more about what Mary had done with the hair he had saved. As I entered his shop, I saw him tidying up his tools.
Ah, there you are,
He said cheerfully.
What can I do for you today?
I leaned in closer, glancing around to ensure no one else was listening. I need to know about Mary. You said she took her hair from you, right? The barber nodded, a shadow crossing his face.
She would come by for trims and ask for the hair. I thought she was just quirky. She always said it was for special prayers, but
He hesitated.
I didn't think much of it at the time.
Did she say why she was praying with it? I pressed.
Something about connecting to her roots.
He replied, shaking his head in disbelief.
I didn't understand it, but she was always kind.
I felt a chill as I recalled the jars in her bakery. Hair of the night. What was she really making? Listen, if you ever see her again, be careful, I warned him. There's something off about her. Something is very wrong. That night, I gathered my friends for an emergency meeting. As I recounted our discoveries, I could see the fear in their eyes grow. We need to warn everyone, Abena said, her voice trembling.
If she's really using hair in her baking,
Then we need to find out where she goes to every day, I concluded, before anyone else becomes a victim. Days turned into a frantic search as we asked around the village, piecing together sightings of Mary. Finally, we learned that she had been seen heading toward the old woods outside of town, a place known for its legends and eerie tales. With determination, we set out to find her with anything suspicious, armed with flashlights and courage. The woods loomed dark and foreboding, branches twisting like fingers overhead. As we ventured deeper, a sense of dread settled in.
What if she's performing some kind of ritual?
Kwame whispered, fear evident in his voice. Days turned into weeks and life continued, but I couldn't eat pies anymore. The thought of hair and that unsettling laugh haunted me. I noticed my friends still indulging in her treats, but I kept my distance. The more I thought about it, the more it felt like something dark lurked beneath the surface. I began visiting the older folks in the village, those who had known Mary for years. I asked them about her, hoping to uncover hidden truths. Most spoke fondly of her, saying she was kind and generous. But one elderly woman, Auntie Mabel, looked at me with a serious expression. Child, some things are better left alone. You don't want to stir up the past. Her words stuck with me, but I was determined. I had to find out more. I started lingering outside the bakery, observing the comings and goings of customers. One day, I noticed something odd. A few villagers whispered as they left the shop, their expressions uneasy. I approached one of them, a man named Kwame. Did you see something in there? I asked, trying to sound casual. He hesitated, then nodded.
I thought I saw something strange, but I'm not sure. It was just a glimpse.
That sparked something in me. What if others had seen what I saw? I began talking to more villagers, piecing together stories. Some claimed they had felt sick after eating her food, but brushed it off as coincidence. Others mentioned odd occurrences, a sense of unease after visiting her shop. Finally, I decided to confront Mary one last time. I gathered a few friends, including Abina, and we went to her bakery. When we entered, Mary was there, her smile wide. But this time, I was ready. "Mary," I said, my voice steady, "we need to talk."
What about?
She asked, feigning innocence. "About the hair in the pie," I pressed, "and the strange things people have been saying." Her smile faded for a moment, replaced by something cold.
You shouldn't dig too deep, my dear. Some secrets are meant to stay buried.
That was the moment everything changed. I felt a wave of fear wash over me. We left the bakery quickly, whispering among ourselves, the tension palpable. So all those rumors were true? The next day, determined to confront her again, I marched to the bakery, my heart racing. But when I arrived, the door was locked. A sign read, "Out of business." My heart sank. I felt a mix of relief and fear. Had I scared her off, or was something more sinister at play? Rumors began to swirl in the village. Some said Mary had moved away. Others claimed she had vanished without a trace. I still remember the day I overheard whispers in the market. "Did you hear about Mary? She's gone." The words sent a chill down my spine. "Maybe that's why she disappeared," I said to Abina, my voice shaking. She knew we were on to her. In the days that followed, we spread the news through the village. No one dared eat her pastries again. The legend of Mary transforming from a sweet memory to a dark warning. The next morning, I woke to find that Mary had packed up and left the village overnight. Her bakery stood empty, the once bustling shop now silent. No one knew where she had gone. It was after she had gone that several villagers indulging in Mary's pastries began experiencing unsettling symptoms that they initially dismissed as coincidence. Some reported severe stomach cramps and nausea, chalking it up to a bad meal or simply the heat. Others felt an unusual fatigue, unable to shake off the exhaustion that seemed to settle over them like a heavy fog. Yet, despite these warnings from their bodies, they continued to indulge in her treats, drawn by the irresistible aroma and sweet flavors. As time passed, the effects became even more pronounced, with some villagers experiencing vivid nightmares and strange visions that left them shaken. A few claimed they heard whispers in the night, eerie echoes that seemed to call their names, but they shrugged it off, attributing it to stress or overactive imaginations. This collective denial masked a growing unease in the community, as those who had savored Mary's snacks began to realize that their persistent ailments and restless nights were tied to the very food they had once loved. To this day, I can't eat pie or cake without remembering that hair. Every time I pass where her bakery used to be, I feel a chill. What was she really up to? Was it just a strange rumor, or was there something darker at play? I often wonder what happened to Mary. Was she still out there, using her bizarre ingredients to lure in unsuspecting customers? The last time I passed the empty bakery, I felt a chill. What if she returned one day, looking for new patrons? I'll never know for sure, but one thing is certain. Every time I see a pie, I think of Mary and her secret ingredient, and I'll always remember. Years later, Amara, Mary's once adoring apprentice, took over the bakery. I watched her closely, hoping she would not honor Mary's legacy. At first, everything seemed fine. Amara had a similar touch. The pastries looked beautiful and tasted divine. She had a spark in her eye that reminded me of Mary, and the villagers flocked to her shop, eager to indulge once more. One bright afternoon, I joined my friends Kwame and Abehna for a treat. The bakery was bustling with laughter and chatter. I felt a wave of nostalgia wash over me as I bit into a flaky pastry, the buttery layers melting in my mouth. But then, a strange sensation crept over me, a sense that something was amiss. I tried to shake it off, attributing it to a busy week. Yet, as days turned into weeks, an unease settled over the village. I began to notice small changes in my friends. Kwame often looked tired, dark circles forming under his eyes, and Abena had started mentioning bizarre dreams that left her shaken. I dismissed it at first, thinking we were simply stressed, but the whispers in the marketplace began to grow. I vividly remember the first nightmare. I awoke in the middle of the night, my heart pounding, drenched in sweat. I had dreamt of a shadowy figure stirring something dark in a bowl, the sound of a child's laughter echoing ominously. When I spoke about it to my friends, they exchanged worried glances, each of us feeling the weight of our shared fears. The more we tried to rationalize it, the more the incidents compounded. Villagers began reporting strange symptoms, stomach cramps, fatigue, and even peculiar dreams that left them restless. It felt as if a fog had settled over the village, darkening our once cheerful lives. One evening, Kwame and Abehna could no longer ignore the sense of foreboding that surrounded Amara's bakery. They invited me to join them in a visit, hoping to confront Amara and find out what was happening. With a mix of dread and curiosity, I agreed. As we entered the bakery, the aroma was intoxicating, but something about the atmosphere felt suffocating. Amara greeted us with an eager smile, her eyes gleaming with an unsettling intensity.
"Welcome. You're just in time to try my new creation,"
he exclaimed, her voice honeyed yet strained. We exchanged wary glances, but the delicious treats were hard to resist. I picked up a chocolate tart, its glossy surface glimmering under the light. With every bite, I felt a strange mix of pleasure and unease, a sensation I couldn't quite place. After indulging, we decided to sneak around the back of the bakery later that night. Our hearts raced as we crept toward the kitchen window, the moonlight casting eerie shadows on the ground. What we witnessed sent chills through my spine. Amara was hunched over a large mixing bowl, stirring a thick, dark mixture. The sight was disturbing, and as we peered closer, I could see jars lined up on the shelves. Labels like Hair of the Night and Essence of Whispers glinted in the dim light. I felt my stomach turn, realization dawning on me. Kwame whispered,
"This can't be real." But it was. Amara was not just baking. She was crafting something dark and dangerous.
Suddenly, she turned, catching sight of us. Her smile transformed into a knowing grin, one that sent us scrambling back into the shadows.
"Caught you,"
she called, her voice laced with an unsettling cheer. The next day, a sense of urgency drove us to gather the villagers. With shaking hands, I recounted what we had seen. "We have to confront her," I urged, my voice trembling with fear and anger. The murmurs of disbelief soon turned into a chorus of agreement as the villagers' anxiety grew. That evening, we marched to the bakery, our numbers bolstered by fear and determination. The air was thick with tension as we confronted Amara, demanding to know the truth. "What are you putting in your pastries?" I shouted, my voice rising above the crowd. Amara's laughter echoed in the air, chilling us to the bone.
"Just a little secret ingredient, my hair that connects me to my roots. You should appreciate the uniqueness,"
she replied, her demeanor shifting from playful to threatening. The elder stepped forward, her voice strong and commanding. "You will cease this madness, Amara. You are endangering our community." But Amara merely scoffed, her eyes narrowing.
"You don't understand art, do you? Every ingredient tells a story."
At that moment, we decided enough was enough. The village had suffered long enough under her influence. "You are banished from this village," the elder declared, and the crowd roared in agreement. Amara's face twisted in fury as she realized her hold over us was slipping. With a final mocking laugh, she stepped outside, leaving behind an air of dread.
"This isn't the last you'll see of me,"
she hissed, disappearing into the dark woods. In the days that followed, the bakery stood empty, a grim reminder of the darkness that had infiltrated our lives. The village felt lighter without Amara's presence, yet an unsettling quiet replaced the once vibrant atmosphere. I still felt the shadows lurking in my dreams, but the nightmares began to fade. Yet, every time I walked past the empty bakery, a chill ran down my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling that we hadn't seen the last of her. The villagers spoke in hushed tones about the possibility of her return, and I found myself glancing toward the woods, half expecting her shadow to emerge from the trees. Months passed, and life returned to a semblance of normalcy. However, I noticed some villagers had started to bake their own treats, trying to fill the void left by Amara's bakery. I wanted to partake, but every time I looked at a pie or cake, I was reminded of the horrors we had endured. One night, as I lay in bed, the whispers began again. They crept into my mind, echoing the laughter of children and the soft melodic tune Amara used to hum while baking. It felt like a warning, a reminder that darkness could linger just beneath the surface. As I stared at the ceiling, I resolved to keep watch. I couldn't let our village fall prey to the same darkness again. The stories of Mary and Amara would live on as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the sweetness that can quickly turn to bitterness if we aren't careful. Even now, the bakery remains a haunting memory, a place where joy and fear once intertwined. And as I walk past that empty building, I know one thing for certain. I will never again take the sweetness of life for granted, nor ignore the shadows that dance just out of sight. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, like the video and comment on what you learned from the video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more enchanting tales just like this one. Thank you.